Let's look into the Ionic grid that they already created, and we're going to use that. Again, we're just using theirs instead of creating our own. So go to ionicframework.com/docs or search for it. It's also where you locate all the components for when you implement the cards. They are up here in this component part. What we're going to be looking into is the theming right now. So click theming over here and go to the responsive grid. This document page that we're on contains a lot of different things. So it's kind of like W3 schools where you can see examples of what to use, how to use, and so on. Same thing here, just only for the Ionic framework. As you can see, there's many different things here, and this is just for the grid by itself. Now they build it on something called Bootstrap, and we're just going to use this part in these examples, because the smart thing about this, I would say, is they made sure that it works in every browser on every phone if we use theirs compared to our own or something similar to that. We have to test to make sure. But again, one is we're more set into how they do it, and with our own we can do whatever we want basically. But it's really free, this one as well. So let's just go through some of this and do a short test. So I'm just going to the first one where how it works. I want to print out this. So having three different, one row here and 3 columns inside of this. So 1, 2, and 3. That's all I want. Going back to my WebStorm, I already deleted it, all the stuff I did, and this is like the standard. I can zoom a little bit in. So this is what's on when we created it initially. So if you want to, you can copy this or just do a lot of undos until you get to this point. I am just gonna go to my Ionic, paste in my grid between these 2 content blocks, ion-content, and click save. And remember to, if you already haven't, remove the CSS we already tried to implement with the two or three different designs. So just leave this blank in my app.scss as well. So back to my app, and right now it's back to home and having these 3 columns here. This is the standard structure for using the grid, and we already know how grid works. So we draw or set out our grid system from our design, and then we are going to build on top of that. Similar process here, but compared to what we've done previously, we don't have to declare all these things in our CSS. So we're using display grid, we're using these grid areas, grid rows, and so on and so on. So all these templates, they're already created, and we're just going to use the HTML to actually create the CSS for us so it knows what to do. So let's just go down here to see if there's something else we can try and test. And there's a little bit more here. So here we have, there's a little bit boring. Let's take this one. Yeah, let's take this one here. So I want to implement this. 2 rows, and each has 3 columns in them. And again, starting with the grid here. So let's copy this, go to our WebStorm, and this is the part is called setting 1 column width. And I'm just pasting this in. So right now, we'll just go through the code afterwards. Right now you can see, now this is being implemented. Of course there's no, right now it's just white background, transparent background, but we can set that up real short. Let's just go through some of the code here. Ion grid tells the system we're going to use a grid system. Ion row is the vertically that way, the vertical. So a row, and columns is like beside each other on the horizontal, vertical, I don't know. You know where I'm going with this. So rows, how many you want down, and columns, how many you want going from left to right. Here again, 1 of 3, 1 of 2, 1 of 2 of 2, 3 of 3, and so on and so on. And one of them says wider and wider. As per default, if you say just like we did up here, up here, where did it go? Up here, it's automatically going to calculate the width. So see if I make this smaller, you can see the ratio still fits. So this is based on calculating the width, so they're all the time the equal amount of width. So remember from float, we did the float 1, 1, 0, and then it's going to use the remaining space, so every of these blocks have the same amount of space towards them and so on. Here, if we look at the code, I'll just go here, that's easier. Here, if we look at the code, this one says column 8. And you remember there's a specific number we kind of used before, and that's a full grid is usually based on a 12 system. That's the same for Bootstrap. That's also why we looked into that. And this is using the 12 column as well. So everything is kind of divided down to 12 here. So this entirety is 12, and so was the other one. So with the other one we showed you up here, it's 4 columns, 4 columns, 4 columns, even though we only see 3, but they're being fitted into 4. Down here we see, where do you go? With column width. Here, that's the reason why we write column 8. So that's going to expand, in this case, that one, the first one here, so it actually takes up 8 columns, and the 2 others take up 2 and 2, because 2 plus 2 plus 8 equals 12. And down here it says column -6, and this one will take up 6 columns, and the 2 left here, 1 and 3, will take up the remaining 6, so divide them by 2, that's 3, so 3 columns, 6 columns, 3 columns. That's how it works. And in the next video we're going to see how we can start styling these, so we can actually start doing things with them besides just being a standard default column.